Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. Sharif Moore of the Drug Free America Foundation, and this is the Pathways to Prevention podcast, where we discuss some of the most innovative and inspiring work being done around the world in substance use prevention, treatment, and recovery. Joining me today is Boro Goic, one of the founding members of RUN, the Recovered Users Network based in Europe. RUN's mission is to build a network that provides a voice for recovered and recovering drug users to promote and share their experiences of recovery on both the political and practical levels, and thereby giving them a voice in the shaping of balanced drug policies, both nationally and internationally. Welcome to our podcast, Boro. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sheriff, also for invitation, and I really like to participate in your podcast, and I hope we will have a good time.
Absolutely. We're so happy that you and grateful that you're willing to support us in this way, and that we can hear about the important work that you're doing with RUN. But before we get into that, would you mind sharing a little bit about your personal story, about how you came to be involved in the recovery movement and work in the drug demand reduction field?
Yes, it's a long story, and I could speak about that for hours, but I will try to be as much as possible short. When I grow up, and it was everything okay and fine, but as a teenager, I start to abuse a little bit marijuana and everything, with the idea when I want to say stop, I could do that, like every teenager. But as time went by, I realized that smoking of weed and smoking of marijuana and making joints, it's a part of my life. And I enjoyed really to be seen in the people around me, like somebody who always has something in a pocket and who is always making the best joints. And I felt differently. I felt like somebody who can make atmosphere in when I am with the friends together. And as I said before, I thought, okay, maybe when I'm 18, I will quit, but I liked it. Yeah. And then suddenly I felt, that this marijuana doesn't give me the same sense, and the same feeling and the same power like it gave it to me when I started to smoke 4 or 5 years ago. And then it was very easy for me to try to sniff heroin. And it was not so, let's say, hard, because with marijuana, I opened the door. I'm always saying like that, I opened the door of addiction. And through the 4 or 5 years of constantly using marijuana, I didn't have some sense of fear when heroin was in front of me. And with the 18, I tried heroin, and I could say in that moment I found something really what is really good, because if it's drug not good, nobody will use it. So drug is good. Beginning, of course. And I didn't know what is expecting me. I was using heroin, first sniffing, then taking a needle, and I'm coming from some middle background in the way of financially, so we never had a lot of money, but also we had never been poor. And always my father and my mother told me, that I need to look nice, and always to try to work, to earn money, etc. And I use that way of living. Somehow I used that what I heritage from my parents, and I tried to work so hard to have money for drugs, and try to look nice, never to be homeless, and try to pay for rent, not to be homeless, and that kept me pretty a long period to use heroin. But with the 27, 28, I realized really that I should quit. I tried several times, on my own. I went to the substitution therapy, I tried to do some crime, and I tried to change place where I live. So I tried several things, but never succeeded. And then maybe the last 2 years of my addiction was very important, not only for addiction process, then for a recovery process, because I saw in the last 2 years of addiction how empty I am, how discouraged I am in everything what I'm doing, how many different chances I never used, and that was in front of me always. And I realized that even I'm a very good guy to have conversation with somebody, I want to be then suddenly alone. And that's not me. And I saw drug changed me so much that I'm losing really hope for a living. I don't see a future anymore. I don't want that heroin anymore, but I don't know how to quit. And I don't know nobody who quit that heroin. I don't know nobody. I'm just between people who are using, and nobody could provide me information that I can take some hope from that information and then build on that hope and build on some strengths. I didn't know nobody. And this is like some prison that you are inside of drug field. Everybody around you, it's inside of drug field, and all kind of help that is offered to you, it's not enough. Some kind offered, like substitution therapy, which is just substitution. Let's say it's a good word,
right?
Substitution. It's not way out. And then I realized that really I need to go somewhere in some therapeutic community, in some rehab center, where I will be in between people that could help me. I went to Croatia, Split, and when I came there, it was no therapists. It was nobody who could provide me some information about how drug is bad. It was only people who are recovered users and who basically gave me information how to do the best from my present. And then I was really suspicious about present because it was really hard to live in the present. I was living in the past. And I was still thinking about all my chances that I didn't use, or I've been thinking about future and didn't have hope that even if I get clean one day, I could come back to my community and eventually get a job or new friends or some girlfriend, which is from non-user group. But it was a rehab center that was based on the Bible, based on the Christian. It was Christian rehab center. And people told me, come on, read the Bible, find some, you don't need to be a believer. Read the Bible, find something what is really giving you like some hope inside of that. You will find it, just read it, And I started to read it, and then I realized, with a few verses, that really all my life I've been searching in the different areas that never gave me power that could change my life. And then I realized eventually, potentially, maybe is the power of change in that Bible. And I took information from Bible like some base to build something on them. And really it worked. I didn't find myself that I'm believing in God. I just said, okay, when I do honestly things, when I'm thinking in my head properly, when I really don't give all the glory for myself, then somehow to the higher power, to the Jesus, to the God, somehow I'm coming easier through the day, through that presence. And that was something what gave a sense that if I build my life on that ground, that solid ground, eventually I could one day be clean. And I spent 4 years in that rehab center. The difference between American rehab centers and European rehab centers, because these are free of charge. We have the self-sustainable rehab center. We have been working in the city of Split in Croatia and earned the money, of course, together like some moverings, or we had a second-hand store, So basically it was not like you need to stay 3 months and then to go out and who knows what will be with you. You could stay how much you want. And then first two years I stayed really because I felt that I needed. And the next 2 years I stayed because I wanted to serve. I wanted to give back to that rehab center something that God gave to me. And I stayed there and worked with the people who just came to the rehab center, everybody with the same feeling like when I came. without hope, without hope that anything can be better in the life. And I'm speaking about 2002. It was in 2002, so 19 years ago. And it was, everybody was hooked on heroin. You know that in Balkan it's been wars between 92 to 95. Then all the people who started with heroin, you know, during the war or a little bit after the war, now came to the period that they've been asking for the help. So it was a lot to do in the rehab center. And when somebody is asking me what was more helpful for you, first 2 years or second 2 years, I will always say that the better blessing is when you give. So it was really that last 2 years when I was giving something of my free time, of my new values to people, you know, of my new skills that I learned, you know, to a people. I think that built my life and gave me some direction what I will do when I go out. So when I went out in 2006, I went back to Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, where I'm still living, and I realized that we need to help people. You know, people need to see somebody, some role models. You know, because still I'm putting myself in the position like 5 years ago, and I know it was nobody around me who can provide me information that it can be done. You can be clean. First information, you know, it can brings you like some hope. And then we organized the NGO, like a civil society organization here in Sarajevo, me and a few friends who are also recovered addicts, and called Celebrate Recovery, start to work. And until now, we are still in that same business, supporting people in the way to find some recovery path. You know, many people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with Celebrate Recovery. We have it here as well, and it's based on the teachings of the Bible.
Yes, we are not same program.
Oh, you're
We are
not the
not same
same. I see.
program. We are, as we are living in the country, in the city that is a 90% Muslim city, we realize that we need to help people with this, what we have inside. If we start and want only people to read the Bible and to find a way out, we will not have many people coming to us. So we opened the door for everybody, you know, didn't want to put a Bible in front of them, but our values are still biblical. So our values, what we are providing to them, you know, and how we are working, and they see that we are different. And they see that when they ask why we are different, of course, that we are responding, but our program is not a totally Christian program. What we are doing here, because we have a lot of different, we are sometimes providing programs here inside of our NGO, but sometimes we are sending them to different rehab centers. You know, or sometimes when we see that we cannot help those people, then some institution needs to be responsible. Maybe they need to go to psychiatry institution. We are providing support that they are going there. You know, yes. So we realize we can support people, we can provide help, but we are not God-given, you know, just that we are only in the world who can help somebody. We need partners, yes. You know, and then together, somehow, multidisciplinary way, we are trying to help people. Together with the doctors in the town, with other NGOs, with other people, psychologists, you know, peer support, so different ways. But with the one thing in the head, you know, that the people, you know, need to go towards drug-free life, towards recovery, towards social integration. People could be employed one day, could provide for their family. So these are our values that we are constantly having in mind when we are talking with the people.
Now, one of the things we talk about in recovery and in 12-step recovery is that we have this spiritual awakening. And like you were sharing in your journey, that in the beginning, you didn't necessarily believe in God, but you were following these principles and these spiritual laws outlined in the Bible, and little by little, maybe God became more real. Now, was there any moment or any kind of spiritual awakening that was really the turning point for you when you really really realize that this is real. God is real.
Of course, it was not maybe moment, it was more maybe process in that spiritual awakening, in the way that we, all of us who made so much bad things, we are carrying such a hard burden on our shoulders. And just to be in some rehab center and just to work, it doesn't make that burden easier. And somehow, when you don't use drugs, it seems that burdens start to be even more heavier. Mm-hmm. So basically, when I came to rehab center, I realized that what I did in my life. Before, when I was using drugs, you are doing some bad things, you are stealing money, you are lying, you are doing some crimes. But when you are using drugs, your conscience is not judging you somehow. But when I became clean, drug-free in the rehab center, and when it was no possibility to use drugs, or to hide from your consciousness, then I realized that it's such a big burden, and then I need to be free from that. And Bible is saying about that we need to pray, and that then God will forgive us. And believe me that I prayed for forgiveness for a few months, and nothing happened. I prayed, I trusted God, like I prayed for forgiveness for a few months. But one day I woke up and I really realized that past, it doesn't have any influence on my present and on my future. And I realized in that moment that spiritual awakening, it's really that God forgave all my sins, because that he died on cross and he forgot that everything. And now I'm free without that burdens to build my life anew. And that was for me, like an opening of that world. And I realized this God is really real and living God and wants to help us in our situation. He's not somewhere on the cross. He's not in the church. He can be inside of us, and he's giving us that second chance. So, and I use that second chance. Some of people know, some of people, being like a more, like in the atmosphere of spiritual awakening, and then just took a little fruits from that and didn't realize that that needs to be a part of your life. You don't need to be radical. You need just to be a normal, and I think that normality is something what I like in my life with God, in the moment, in the present. 18 years after I realized that God is the living God.
And I assume that you are also able to forgive yourself, because I've met people that they know that God has forgiven them, because God will always forgive us if we're sincere, but they're not able to forgive themselves for, some of the things they may have done, which that's really an important component of healing and moving past, that pain and that addiction.
Very important, very important. I realized that I could do that easier when I realized I can live now and build a new. It was not problem, for myself to forgive to myself, because my acts in the present was differently than I acted before. Because I did a good deeds suddenly. We tried to help people in that rehab center, and then it was, okay, if I continue to do that, it will be no problem anymore. So that was some guiding point for me.
Now, throughout this process, was your family supportive? Did they even know that you had a problem when you were using?
Yes, everybody knew. Everybody knew, and when I went to the rehab, it was goodbye without hope. It was goodbye like, even if you get better, don't come back to us. And I can understand that. I cannot, we are living now in 2021, and we want that everybody is supporting you with the most beautiful words, So we are hearing on the conferences, in whatever situation you are, please give them support, find some hope in them. But we are people from the flesh and blood, we need to see that even our parents, our brothers and sisters, our neighbors are so disappointed in us. Why they are disappointed? Because we did the bad stuff. You want to do bad stuff, and then everybody is coming and say, oh, you are great. We see you one day. It's not possible always. So in that moment, I didn't understand, why they don't want me, even if I get better. But during my recovery path and my awakening, as you mentioned it, I realized that's it. And then I need, through my role model, through my way of living, if I live on proper way, it will be changed. And it changed. After 4 years, really, my parents been supporting me. I could come back to their flat because I was starting from the 0 point. I didn't have a flat, no money, no nothing. And that was important. So then I realized about that relationship. When you do a bad stuff, what you're expecting. Of course, that we need to support you, but what you are expecting, But when you do a good stuff, then we are really expecting from the people around us, from the parents, from the brothers, sisters, community, to support us in the good way, But still, we feel a stigma, even when we are recovered, we feel sometimes stigma around people.
Yeah, trust. It's one of those things where it just takes one moment to completely destroy it in one instant, and it takes a very, very long time to rebuild it.
Yes, agree, but we need to take care how do we live every day. This is what the Bible is calling us, but as everybody, doesn't matter now Bible, there are many recovery paths, and I think everybody is teaching, to think how do you live on your daily life. Think, because our life is not the same. Life of people in recovery is not the same life like a life of ordinary people. We need to have some different eyes about who is our friend, who is our girlfriend, what kind of job we will take to work, how is that job influencing on us? What do we really want with that money that we are earning finally and don't need to give for the drugs? Because different bad decisions can bring us again to a position where we don't see the right way and the right path, and then we are again back. Normally people, will okay, we should never have a drug use problem, should not think so much about that. Of course, after the years of not using, you don't need, it's going automatically. I don't need after 20 years to think, should I stop with that guy or that guy? Is that guy using or not? I'm free of drugs, I can stay with everybody. But in the first year, when I went out of rehab center, I was thinking.
And I still think even after 20 years, you still bring that awareness into all situations of your life, which is very useful. The ability to be able to introspect and analyze yourself and how you're behaving. And that's also very important for your continued spiritual growth. And that's one of the gifts of recovery, that we're very grateful for, that people, that are not in recovery, never struggled with addiction, they really they don't live their life in that way, a lot of them. And maybe it's more unconscious for them. And I think this points to David Best's research about how people in recovery are better neighbors, better community members, better employees, because we're constantly, not only we're more aware, but we hold ourselves accountable, and we're always striving, to improve and to live according to these spiritual principles.
Agreed, totally. And I think that all the recovery movement is not enough visible because we don't have enough science and the visible numbers about what really recovery brings to the life of the person and also to the life of community. Because we all, let's say naturally, we are just looking bad stuff, okay, he's bad and he will stay bad forever, but we need to rethink. If we had a neighbor before, and we see this neighbor and always closing the door because we are afraid that he can come in our flat and steal something or whatever, we need to think if that neighbor recovered, one day we have somebody who will help us. Because this is inside of that heart of recovery, because recovery is giving back what addiction took from us. And this is like some fruit, You have some roots and then you have a fruit. And fruit of a recovery, it's not, I will hide myself. I will hide myself. No, I will be open. I don't need to tell my story to everybody, but I will be there to help. I will be there to be open, honest, to help the community, to bring something inside. And because that, I think, those researches of academics that you mentioned from David Best, or the people who are like he, are very important to understand inside of policy work, policy makers, to understand what really recovery brings. It's not only narrative story. I was somebody, and now I'm winner, and people like that story for 1 or 2 days, but then you are like everybody else, and I think those numbers and really evidence-based numbers are very important, that we are providing real information to the people in community, to people who never had a problem with addiction. Why? To accept us, to not stigmatize us, to be a part of our world, let's say.
Yes, and you raise an excellent point that it's not just about, winning. I remember 2 years ago, I went to our Florida regional convention of Narcotics Anonymous, and I was in one of the meetings, and one of the speakers there was sharing. He was saying, 4 years ago, I was homeless, living on the street. I had no money, no job, no prospects. And now I've got a boat and a house and a car. And, I was just shaking my head. I was like, that's not what it's about. Addiction, it isolates us. And like you were saying, what recovery gives us back is that connection and the blessing to be of service to others.
Totally agree with you. It's not only about recovery stories. It's very important that we have that narrative. Okay, and that we are free. Not everybody can be free and in front of everybody to have that narrative and to speak freely about his past or what happened, everything. But narrative is very important. This narrative that I was what I was, and I'm open to speak about that, is not anymore designing my present and my future, and that's very important, but narrative, that change is possible, whatever that is, not every change is I was a crime and I was in crime and now I have a boat. Not many people are reaching so much, but every change is very important to be supported. Some people will not be heavy users. Some people will stay on substitution therapy and not any more touching drugs. Some people will quit and then maybe a little bit drinking. So this is also is that I think some progress. And if we come to the place and position that people can work, can build a family, this is really unbelievable something, and this is something what we need to talk about that, but also to combine that with some research that will show to other people, to ordinary people that don't have so much with you together, because not everybody in the world is using drugs. Only some small point of people are using drugs and understand that processes. I think it's very important to combine that when we are working in that field, that the people make less stigma about that, because stigma is a very big problem about reaching social integration and the full recovery. It's a big problem everywhere.
Absolutely. I know we have a lot of work to do here in the U.S. Towards overcoming stigma, and I can imagine in your region of the world, in the Balkans and Eastern Europe, perhaps even more so, because I know that their addiction must be very, very heavily frowned upon. Here, people are almost forced to confront it because this has affected everybody here. Everybody has a family member that's been addicted or perhaps even died. We've had 900,000 people since 1999 that have now died of a drug overdose, more than any other country in the world.
Yeah, I know your problem, and I'm following that through the partnering with your organization, with other organizations in America, with following news about what's happening. I realize your problem about fentanyl and a lot of overdose that you have, especially in the eastern part of America. But we don't have so many overdose. But here it's a more problem about how one day to find a job, because there are no jobs even for ordinary people and not for recovery, people in recovery. So this is something here, you invest in your life, but society around you are not following that. And then people are somehow, disappointed. Yes, I did everything. I went to rehab, I went out, now I'm living good life, and, no opportunities to do something with your life. And this is sometimes problem why people are backsliding and going again into the addiction. Because yes, it's my responsibility about my life, but really society around me should be more supportive. When I say society, that means from your coworker to opportunities to find a job, from your parents that maybe are not trusting you, in the moment. Or we are talking sometimes with the people who went out of rehab, what they will put in the CV if they've been 2 years in the rehab center. Should they put unemployed or they put, rehab center? Because if you put directly rehab center, nobody will employ it. If you don't put nothing and somebody realize that you have been in the rehab center, maybe you are a liar and they will fire you. So what is the best? Nobody knows. Sometimes we are supporting this way, sometimes that way. Not all the door will be open, in some society with a lot of stigma, if you are honest. Even I like that, but you cannot say to everybody, okay, say your boss that you have been in rehab. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about Run, your involvement with Run and how Run came about, the history there.
Yeah, Run, it's a short of Recovered Users Network. And it's a political platform, basically, that we built on European level in 2013. And the reason to build that kind of platform that will represent recovered users and people in recovery in some different political arenas. When I say political arenas, I'm thinking about European Union and United Nations. The reason why we started to build that, we saw that whenever we are coming to some let's say drug policy platforms, when we say to some policy makers who are involved in the drug policies, we see a lot of involvement of current drug users, but we never see involvement of recovered users or people in recovery, however you want to call it. I realized when I came 2012 to European Union and to European Commission, and it was like some civil forum society on drugs, I realized that the story about providing informations from the different NGO, like some expert group of 50 NGOs, was providing informations of how current drug users are suffering and how we need to provide better harm reduction services. And I was really surprised, I can tell you. I was really surprised. I didn't know that when it comes to drug policy, so much drug users involvement is there, so many harm reduction measures who need to exist. I agree. But how we do not have a balance with some recovery-oriented systems of care? I don't want to say this or that. Can it be one? Is that totally two different religions, how to say, strategies. I was really surprised in that 2012. And I came back and talked with, as I built some network around us, like partnering with the people from Belgium, from UK, from Italy, different rehab centers, like some exchange of experience. We said, okay, why do not we sit and try to build a recovered users network that will be present in the different policy arenas, and whenever policymakers need something from some people in recovery, if they ever want, we don't know if they want, we can provide those informations. In 2013, we be 4 organizations, 3 from Eastern Europe, and then it was 2 from Eastern Europe, 1 from Italy, big rehab center, San Patrignano, and 1 Norwegian organization. And we started without any money, without plans now to have a big project, and still we do not need a big project. We just need to be visible. And then we encouraged different organizations to join with the idea how to bring more recovery champions, those people who can combine a recovery narrative and potentially some evidence-based research. So, and then we've been presented in European Union and then in the UN and Commission for Narcotic and Drugs. They start to make some preparation for that UNGAS, that was in 2016. And one of the first successes was that they had like a different experts and in the different marginalized groups. So they have like a teenager, like somebody who is representing teenagers. They have somebody who is representing farmers, like who is growing coke in the Bolivia. But they have a representative of current users, and it was one girl from China, who is living in America, Chinese girl, and I was representing recovered users. And really, when it got, and it was really on the monthly basis, involvement about with different policymakers from UN, from the international levels. So we went to UK, spoke with the people in UK, how they build the recovery system of care. We brought that to the Croatian. Then in Croatia, people start to be more interested. So like with this involvement in UN, suddenly involvement in the national drug policy was better, and we could come to the different offices and say, okay, why don't you see, involvement of this? Why is not recovery part of your drug policy too? Why do you not rethink when you build the next policy strategy, etc., etc.? So we provided took a lot of information who already have some recovered policies like UK and brought it to the different national drug policies. And also in 2016, when it was that UNGAS, a lot of recovery-oriented things was in that outcome document, and not so much about harm reduction. I'm not telling that it was battle between one and other. It's also a political thing, and in that outcome document was shaped a lot from the Russia, etc., and US, which is good thing, not so liberal document. But in that document, which is like some guideline for the different national drug policies, which is still valid, from 2016, when you open it, you will see a lot of wording about social integration, about recovery, about things like that. And for example, we had a special side events, and the former drug czar Botticelli, who is calling himself from the US, Botticelli, he said about himself that he's also somebody who is in recovery from alcohol. And he started to mention that 24 million of Americans are in recovery. Most of them in some natural recovery. They never ask the help, but we need to consider that recovery is something what is happening in our society. And that was something, when somebody is so strong, politically strong, is saying some words about that, in the UN arena, start to be a different balance. And until now, I think that we, especially in the UN, with the support of different organizations, with the side events, with the different governments that are supporting also recovery as a part of drug policy. It's not the main part, you have different things. This is not everything about recovery. There is a supply, but inside of demand reduction, there are a lot of partners in the moment.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that struck me about the the current users and the harm reduction movement, it's almost as if they see drug use as, being inevitable, and they don't seem to focus so much on helping people out of it. It really seems more to favor perpetuation of the drug use. Is that what you've seen as well?
Yes, totally. Problem of recovery movement is that addiction is predominantly seen as a medical problem. And wherever you go to some different boards or scientific committees, you see medical people sitting there, and medical approach is always based on some pathology, never based on some strengths. and we are totally differently looking on that. We don't want to be somebody who is differently looking and nobody is accepting us. We just want to bring a balance. And we are always say, we want to focus on strengths. And even if you shape policy, tell me just personally what you're going to do with your policy if your son, you as a policy maker, is hooked on heroin. Would you give him heroin on recipe? Would you provide him heroin? Would you provide him lifelong methadone? Or would you try to do your best, to make a balance and to try him to engage him on some way that he could potentially recover, get a job, have a stable family, have a stable finances, that he have a one job, not one job for 10 days and then somebody's firing him, and then next 1 month and things like that. I think that all normal people will say, yes, we are for that. But when you look into the policy, it's like a huge, we are ghettoizing people and like politicians sometimes want to ghettoize, all addiction field and to put them somewhere. And then we want to integrate them. But how to integrate people with such a big drug problem, and then it seems like harm reduction is totally something a different side than recovery. But in the last period, I can see that even, we can sit together with the people from harm reduction services, and to find some together strategies together, because they see also, only harm reduction, it's not helping people, coming out of addiction, if this is a goal. Because they realize the not goal of the all demand reduction is to provide clean needles. Do we need to provide clean needles? Of course. Do we need to stop HIV and hepatitis C? Of course. But is this the end? Save lives means a lot of things. For me, save lives, it's a main stuff, But save a life, it's not only surviving. Save a life needs to me, there is a life after we save. There is a growth, we need to grow, not only to survive. Because I'm thinking if we just save lives and leave people to survive, they will die. You cannot save it always, because it's a difficult thing. And I think, we need to find a together platform with the people who are even wants to legalize everything, and to see, okay, to sit together and to say, okay, we have living examples that not everybody who is using drugs like to use it, like you are explaining to everybody. Because now in the different policy arenas, especially when you come to the higher levels like UN or European Union, you have informations like, okay, everybody needs to do what they want, and if they want to use drugs, we need to support them, and we should decriminalize everything. Maybe we should agree or disagree. We should legalize everything, that we can do it. And everybody knows who are from Recovery Users Network, who are from recovery field. We know that drug is not so light to say, okay, it's enough.
Well, and that's a very, not only is that a very narrow view, but it's also a very individualistic view of it, because when people use drugs, that has an effect on their families, on their children. I mean, I don't think people that use heroin can be good parents, and that's going to lead to trauma in the children. It affects employers. It has a huge effect on the wider society. It's not just limited to that one person, to their choice to use drugs. So that's not a valid argument in my opinion, because we're not, we're all in this together. We're all connected. We're a society. It's not just about individuals.
Agreed. I will agree, but if you say in the UN that a heroin addict cannot be a good parent, they will kill you. Everybody, because this is not a good language, they say. This is now, we have, me and you, when we are talking like this, we know exactly what is the reality and what is the truth. But some realities are not acceptable on some policies arenas. And now we are trying with a not different totally language, because I don't know to speak some political language like you do. We are trying that just with our own example and with the presence on different and with the putting and writing some documents and with some statements just to be presented there and to say what really is and reality is, then you can be really accepted by society and you can be socially integrated when you change your values a little bit, when you change your lifestyle, and change is something what is not easy, but it's possible. And then we are bringing change inside of that drug policies arenas. So it's not easy thing, but this is not everything what RUN is doing. Recovered Users Network being also like some platform that want to a little bit unite different recovery paths, let's say like that. We have one problem in recovery because everybody's thinking that his way, how he recovered is the best. And somehow directly with this thinking, it's making other people not so valuable, not so on the same position. And this is what I saw when we are talking with NA is thinking this, or when Christian rehab centers are thinking we are the best, And when you go to some therapeutic communities that is basic on some secular principles, and many people recovered, they thinking, they are best. And this is something really difficult. This is like some side effect of recovery, of that fruit, because this fruit that you are bearing in your new life, it's also, yes, this path is the best. I need to keep this is, and then you don't see to give respect to the other recovery paths. And this is I know that Bill White is doing something in Florida. He was doing that before, William White. He was doing conferences with the different recovery paths where everybody needs to talk about his path. And that was, like recovery through yoga. Who knows what the paths? And maybe if I disagree with that, I will not respect that. I will be, this is not possible. You are clean, but you don't have values. And this is something what is stigmatizing. So we are in recovery stigmatizing different.
Yes, especially when it comes to MAT. That was one of the most disheartening and disappointing things that I found in NA was their view of MAT, people that are on buprenorphine or methadone, because that's an evidence-based treatment that's shown to save lives. And some people, they're not able to do the cold turkey kick, especially now when you have these fentanyl analogs that are so much stronger than heroin. Medication assisted treatment, it has its place. And to tell people that they're not clean and that they can't share, that's just not that's not right, in my opinion.
Agreed. But with communication and partnering is the key point of our work in recovery. Doesn't matter locally in your community or if you work on some global level. Because if we sit together here in Bosnia, where I live, and Herzegovina, with the different rehab centers and different groups of people in recovery, then we can eventually understand each other. If we are just working, the biggest problem of any institution or organization is isolation. So I think who is working isolated, even if you have such a good rate of people who are going out of your organization or institution and clean and whatever your goal is, you are still isolated. And who is isolated think about himself or his organization, it's the best. And this is problem. If we work together, maybe my program is different from NA, but once in the year, we need to sit on the same conference. So to sit there together or to sit in the different meetings, or if I see that my program is not working, to be free, to deliver that person to you without any problems that you will tell something what is different than my values. Because this comes to the question sometimes when we should refer persons to each other or to some hospitals or to some psychiatrists, then we say, okay, not other, this is it, we need to work together. And I'm thinking this is the best platform, together trainings, together some seminars, together conferences, We also, as a recovery users network, are using, as we don't have a big projects, but this is more like a platform, using different partners like World Federation Against Drugs, like URAD here in Europe, like San Patrignano, that when they have a conference, we'll have always some truck, and then we have there to provide with our not only narrative speech, then different what we are doing, different projects, or some evidence-based research, what is also part of our work. And I'm thinking very important part.
So for that piece, the evidence-based research, you're seeking partnerships with academics and academic institutions that are already engaged in that type of research?
Yes. We make a relationship with first Sheffield Hallam University in Sheffield, UK, and the main researcher there was David Best. Then we made a connection with the Glasgow Research Institute for Drug Abuse with Neil McKegney. And those people brought some different understanding to all of us in the platform, in the run. And how we helped them is that when they had some new research, they asked us for the target group. And we could provide it through our organization. So, for example, life and recovery research that was conducted even in the US, I think in 2013, through the Faces and Voices of Recovery, and also in Australia in 2015, was made in Balkan countries, in 4 countries in 2018. So we provided the people, people in recovery who we know, and everything they made in the UK. And then we had some paper that we could provide with our knowledge of addiction and recovery to the policymaker or to the doctors, and a response was totally different. First, nice. It's saying somebody from UK. It's not some our university here, then somebody who has a history and a lot of piece of work and researches, and it was really that giving us credibility about everything what we are doing in the moment. So some kind of research like that. And then, when you have one research, you can make 1,000 presentation because it's so valid. For example, now I have a conference in Belgrade in the September. It will be a conference about recovery capital. So I have a presentation about, what is the obstacle to recovery from the perspective of the research, what the people are saying, what are the obstacles? And obstacles are, in the moment, for the 50% of people, obstacle is full-time employment. And then we can talk with the different experts, why it's employment so problematic. I told you in the few sentences, but we should hear, from but we are not just imagining that employment is a problem. We have evidence.
So is it lack of full-time employment?
Yes, it's a lack of, for people in recovery, it's a lack of full-time employment. And from the other side, the same research, Life and Recovery, is reporting that the people, for example, in addiction are reporting 75% of firing from the job, and now in recovery, only 15%. So we have a need, we have a demand of I'm like everybody else, but here in the place where we should find the employment, we don't have a proper possibility to be employed. That's a problem. We want to show, look, the people are different. This is what the recovery research is showing, but still on this places, where we should find the work, like as a recovered users, maybe some programs, some country, some government should build for 20 people in a year, enough sometimes. Sometimes enough 20 people for some community to be employed, because we need to think what that job will bring to a recovery capital of that person personally. It's money, it's different values that he needs to provide, on that work to keep it, and also for community. This is that, but it's now in the numbers, through that research, and that helps a lot. And now we conducted second research also It was also now in the Balkans area, now only in the Balkans, and we want to provide it in the different European countries, potentially in some towns or states in America and US. It's about stigma among professionals. And this is also interesting that we could provide that even if people are in addiction or in recovery or in stable recovery, that we are calling after 5 years, when the people are 5 years in recovery without some problematic drug abuse, we are calling that stable recovery. And everybody wants for everybody, to reach that stable recovery, because after 5 years, relapse rate is falling down to 15%, which is like a relapse rate in the ordinary citizens, So problematic drug use can be like for everybody. So basically, we are seeing that not big differences between people in addiction, in recovery, and in stable recovery. From who? Not from ordinary citizens, then from the professionals. And it's a big question what to do now, how to reduce that stigma. One of the reason should be more people in recovery must be visible. And this is not the case. Here, this is not the case. I see in UK recovery walks, and I see in US, it's a totally different society. You are somehow more accepting people when you go towards West. And here, everybody is afraid. And it's not possible to organize something unless visibility that recovery exists. If we have a professional who is working in the police, okay, and that professional is seeing all the time only people, professionally seeing people who are stealing something, committing crime, and then coming every year to his police station, that means, that he's never seeing anybody, who solved the problem. But if that same person who was several times in the police station, and now recovered and not went to his home, and then said, okay, recovery is only for myself, and I will be a good husband, good man, etc., then he's wanting, to be on some conference where we will invite those same police officer, because he's working as a professional only in that field, he will see it something different. He don't need to be a recovery champion to speak in front of everybody, but just his presence on that conference, he will be helping something, will present to a people, okay, there are many of those people. Look, I know him from the police station 10 years ago, and now it's different. Those people will approach even current users with a different way.
So a recovery champion doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's in recovery from using. It's just somebody that is working to promote recovery and help the recovery movement, and it has personal experience with the issue somehow.
Yes, absolutely. So this is for us very useful, when we find somebody from the community, who has experience, and wants to help, so it's visible, then it's visible, and then I'm not telling visibility, it's always through the television, or the media, visibility is when you're free with your past and you want in community to help, and then it's changing. And everybody say recovery is somehow contagious, so when the people see how you approach things, what attitude you have towards some things in the life, people want that same, So this is why we should encourage people to be a part of some groups of something, not always a part of some programs. We need to be a part of some programs. There are some groups that are voluntarily helping in communities, etc., etc.
And that's an important way to break down barriers of stigma as well. And one of the things you mentioned before about at the 5-year mark is when the risk of relapse really drops off. And it sounds like, that raises the question, well, what can we do to really maximize the probability that somebody's going to make it to the 5-year mark? And it sounds like, gainful employment really is key because, besides the economic benefits, employment, it really gives somebody a sense of purpose, self-esteem, which is absolutely essential. I have a very hard time imagining how someone can stay in recovery, if they're not working and they're struggling financially. That's a really tough situation, really tough challenge to overcome.
Yeah, I will agree with you. That 5 year mark is it's something what came from William White, also your neighbor in Florida, and it's important when we also see in front of us a lot of people, because in the first few years of your recovery path, even if you are protected in some rehab center, protected, you are living there, or if you are doing your recovery path in NA groups, then you are outside, let's say like that, you are in community, or basically first few years, that needs to be very, very, let's say it's a fragile. It's a fragile, the past is still, it still have a big power on you, let's say like that. And if you do your rehabilitation in your community, you still don't know how to address your new life or your new values to somebody who wants to bring you back, to the old life, not by purpose, but it's going everything like that. So I'm thinking, you learn how to live after addiction and recovery. And then after 5 years, as everything, when you repeat it, your addiction started because you repeated doing things. You repeated constantly using drugs. You repeated constantly lying when you come home where you've been. You're repeating always, when you commit crime, I'm not that. You are repeating bad habits. And now you are repeating your good habits. You're coming to an NA meeting. You're being honest when you share. You're telling, okay, it's a hard time for me. Whatever that is, in the rehab, in the secular, Christian, doesn't matter where. And after repeating some things, 5 years, maybe this is a point, not to say, I don't need it anymore. Now I'm free from drugs. But this is really a point where evidence-based shows us, that then it's a really, your potential then to relapse, it's really reducing to 15%. So in my mind, what does it mean for the different services? Okay, try to make availability of services, and that those services needs to work very hard with that person first few years. And then after that can be more. Not all the times, it's not the most important thing, that you need to do that, and that sensibility, when you came out of rehab, that you have an open space for some job, etc., that somebody is accepting you, that we are working with the parents, that they not stigmatizing you, or that they encourage you, in your first years of recovery. So this is what does it mean then in the practice, that we give opportunity in the first years that people are achieving something.
You touched upon an important point about the family being an active part in recovery. And I know in some of the treatment programs here, they consider, treatment to be a family process. So they actually bring in the family members to participate, because it's interesting how in a lot of cases with people that are struggling with substance use, the whole family is playing a part in it, that whole dynamic. So that's really important to involve the family from the very beginning.
Our numbers here in Celebrate Recovery in Bosnia are showing there is family member involved, one or two. Numbers of people who will accede to social integration and recovery will succeed that are 50% bigger where was not family member involved. Because let's think on this way, if we are only providing some information and want some responsibility from you, we are then only, one day has a 24 hours and the week is long and the month is long. If we are seeing each other on the weekly basis to give you some kind of support, whatever that is that support group, is that one-on-one, whatever that is, it's not so much. It's really not so much. We need to involve more people and the family is so important, because when you think even in addiction, family is somebody who is staying with you until the end. I think this is more in the family ways. We are in the better position maybe in the Balkan region than you maybe in America, because the life is different. You are going to study in Massachusetts or in Minnesota, and you are seeing your family once a year, eventually. And here is a little bit different. And family is more together. It's not on distance. Even if you are 10 years away from your family, when you call and say, I'm coming back, they will accept you. It's a different way. Like in Southern Europe, it's like that, and Italy, Greece, we live together, and this is very important. So, but what is the problem? In that case, sometimes family members are codependent, and then you are going recovery path with people in recovery, and family members are missing trauma. So they are missing problems. Unbelievable is that, So working with them to see that the new period, it's a great period. They don't need to cause troubles with that, because 10 years of every day waiting when police or emergency will call you and tell you your son is in police station or your son had an overdose, makes a big change inside of family members too. And then when suddenly now it's a different situation in the family, everything, peace arrived. Not the whole recovery, but peace came there. They don't know what to do with that kind of stage in the life. This is one problem. The other problem that family members are overwhelmed of how that recovery is going well. And instead to keep people responsible, they want to provide all that love and help. And for example, sometimes they saving the money to buy a car to a son because he is so successful in his recovery path. And we are saying it's not a time to buy him a car, because a car should be something that he should use when he have a job. He doesn't have a job in the moment. He needs a car only to be important. And this is not something what we want to see. His importance is not the car. His importance is his values. And then they don't understand it. They don't understand it. And then also you have family members that are really going, parallel with recovery paths, with everything, what we are doing in here or in some rehab center, and really taking the same values like what is in the rehab center or in the groups, or they are part of the groups here during their sons or daughters or husbands are in the rehab center. And then we are providing the same information what they are providing in the rehab center. What is basically how they should behave. If they say in the rehab center, okay, don't call him next month. It's not good if you call him. There is a reason behind that. And it's not selfishness of some leader in rehab center or laziness that he don't want to pick up the phone. And sometimes they are coming with that ideas. This is my son. I need to talk with him. Yes, but if you gave your son to the hands of people who knows, what they are doing, then it must be something behind it. So we are working on that basically, on those simple questions that can ruin everything or that can support everything.
Especially the ones, as you were saying, they're addicted to the drama, the emotional roller coaster of the ups and downs and the drama. And then it can be very counterproductive to contact their family member in treatment and trigger some of those memories and negative emotions. So, yeah. Now, what lies ahead for Run? What are your goals for the next 12 months, and what do you want to focus on in the next year?
Next year will be focused, as we are living in a very unpredictable still times and pandemic. We would like to connect with everybody in person and to organize some conference. Where it will be, we don't know still. This is our plan, eventually beginning of next year, to meet in person. Because We saw different online meetings, online interventions, online conferences. Everything is nice. You can get the knowledge. But the smile is different in person and online. Hug is not possible online. So I think we need to come in person to bring a different people who can speak. We don't have now to have the best conference in the world. Everything is good when you have a good company around you. So we need to think where that should be, to find some finances, and to have one representative of every organization. Now we have about 60 organizations together. One representative, if he can, and it's impossibility to travel and come back safe, not to be in isolation, which is very different at the moment. I think it will be very good for us if we have us together and organize some conference. This is a goal. Some finances we have in the moment. Let's see how we can manage it eventually in January, February, March next year. And also, when we have finished this research, Stigma and Mall Professionals, we want to offer it to a different organization and to start to make it in the different parts. Who is really interested for that kind of research? It could be translated in English, and it could be done in the small point scale. So, like in Florida, in Tampa, in only one city. If you find 500 professionals in the different areas, like from the doctors, medical officers, NGOs, harm reductionists, NGOs, doesn't matter, and let's see what is the stigma among them when they look, about current users, people in recovery, and people in stable recovery. And let's measure it. Who is most of them marginalizing? People from media? No. Police officer? Yes. Social workers, for example, we have that social services here, that are caring like for people. Social services, mostly stigmatized. Unbelievable. Because social service should be here very close to some marginalized gypsy people, mother that raised the kids alone, or something like that. This is the description of their jobs. And stigma. If I just say stigma, nobody will believe me. If that research is saying stigma, then we can eventually make some programs with them, some projects with them together, sit together and say, okay, look, people in recovery have a chance. You should support them in the first few years, and then give them some opportunity, whatever that is. Don't close the door. Don't say, come tomorrow, because you need to open it for them. They are worthy for that. So basically, this is the plan. What will be, it depends on our politicians, and policy, different pandemic policies that will be brought for this autumn and winter. But let's hope that we see each other on some conference, and let's hope that this podcast can provide enough information also for the different organizations or individual to join Recovered Users Network. This membership is free, and you can join just by filling the survey and put your name and name of your organization, and we will put you on some mailing list, and you can get all informations about this conference or some research or whatever we are doing in the moment, and eventually these individuals and organizations can be a part of something what we are organizing.
Absolutely, and we are going to be sending out this conversation to all of our partners. So thank you very much, Boro. This was an absolutely delightful discussion. This has been one of my favorite episodes so far, because I just love talking about recovery and spirituality and hearing about other people's journeys, and especially the important work that Run is doing. It's been a pleasure to learn more on that, and I look forward to partnering with you and helping to further your work.
Yeah, thank you very much one more time, and not only to you, to your organization, and to all the audience that is hearing this.